Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the newest album from Brazy Da Bo called Perfection Is. You know, I found myself a bit surprised how much I was looking forward to covering this album. And I say that only because I've been watching Brazy Da Bo's artistic evolution for a couple of years now. From 2015 when I covered two of his projects, to 2017 with an album that looked to be a little bit more experimental than ever before. Now for those of you who don't know, and I imagine that's the majority of you, he's a Baltimore rapper who's got a fine enough ear for beats, but occasionally could struggle technically with content and delivery. Although, not to the point where I was going to be outright ignoring any project that he was putting out. What caught more of my attention was that in the era of mixtape culture, he had taken a little bit more time here to refine a new full-length album, and from lead-off singles, he looked to have pushed both his flow and his production into very different territory than the spacier bangers that he used to favor. Now granted, I wasn't exactly crazy about his singing voice, which he looked to be employing a little bit more, but again, I approve of experimentation, and I wanted to see what he could pull together. So, what did I find on Perfection Is? Well, to put things frankly, of the three projects that I've covered from Brazy Da Bo thus far, this is easily his strongest to date. I would hesitate to call it a great rap record, but it's certainly solid, reflecting of an artist who has shown steady improvement over the past couple of years, and who I will continue to cover because I'm convinced he's got some real potential at this point. And at this point, if he managed to polish up a couple of loose ends, I would easily slot him into a list of reliable underground MCs that might not be tremendously experimental, but through a combination of good skills and great production builds a sort of trend-defying cult following that you might find for an artist like Styles P or Fashion. I can see Brazy Da Bo fitting in that mold. And you know what, not to oversell this, but a huge part of why I believe this is even possible is his production and his production taste. Now, I've always said that he's got a great ear for beats, and this time around, he got his most diverse and colorful set to date, content to pull from both modern trap trends, but also dig into old school soul and more colorful synthesizers, strings, guitar, and horn tones. Yeah, okay, the horns might seem a tad thin on the lead-off single Life, and as I said earlier, I wasn't a fan of the sung hook, but he plays off the sandy cracks, the sizzling guitars, and the watery organ tones remarkably well. And when you follow it up with songs that vary from shimmering gloss and the chimes of the game, the dirty and heavy scratches of Let Me Out courtesy of DJ Rocky Styles, the bombastic orchestral swell on Unlimited Rhyme, really good instrumental there and really good hook there too, and the haunted keys and the trap skitter of Double Jointed, it's clear you're dealing with an artist who's not gonna need to stick with one solitary sound in order to flow, and that does wonders for keeping this album moving and diverse. Right from the opening song, there's a production change-up that might feel a tad stiff, but has improved immeasurably for the deep cut Dream, which takes a gorgeous orchestral sample for the first half of the hi-hat that later takes off its gloss into eerie, more subtly twisted territory. I like that change up there. Now look, I'm not crazy about all the production choices. The thick, oily synth pile onto the chorus of Death spoils an otherwise atmospheric tune that I quite liked, and Material Things could have easily used another verse to really flesh out a song that's a borderline interlude. And you know what, yeah, if you're looking for production with more grit, some of the production here might seem a little bit too clean for you, but there's a lot of melodic depth and tone to these mixes, and the hooks, they've definitely come through as a result of that. They stick with you. Now granted, I think a part of this is reinforced by Brazy Da Bo actually rapping instead of singing over the majority of these hooks. Life, thankfully, it is an outlier, and that takes us to a lot of the rapping itself. Now let me establish this right out of the gate. This record is explicitly intended as more of a bars fest, primarily focused on showcasing our rapper with sharp punchlines that aren't really intending to get tremendously deep or conscious, and I can understand that. Now, on the same hand, this can be something of a mixed blessing. You're not going to get anything as personal as All Dogs Go to Heaven, or as directly political as City on Fire, Pray for Baltimore, both songs that I heard back in 2015 on different projects, and both those songs captured something that Brazy Da Bo made very much his own with a real personal touch that I appreciate, and I actually go back to the songs to this day. But at the same time, when just tasked to deliver interweaving punchlines and bars, he sounds a lot more comfortable in this lane, and more consistent than ever he actually delivers here. Again, it's not like he doesn't reference socio-political issues, issues. Police brutality and systemic racism comes up pretty early, pretty bluntly, and you can tell that it does color his experience. Or that he doesn't get more conceptual, because with Dream, he focuses on potentially encountering that perfect woman and then nearly cheating on her, but he doesn't, ending with a potent romantic sentiment that ends on a pretty haunting note when the song resolves. But I predict a fair number more people are going to remember songs like Unlimited Rhyme for the pile-up of bars, or the anti-snitch track of On the Low, or Death, or even Double Jointed, which is far better than any weed song has any right to be. Now on the flip side, I'm not wild about the central conceit behind songs like Heroin. In comparing his rhyming to drugs, Brazy Da Bo does this a couple times, and thankfully guest star Awkward J mostly avoids the concept and arguably holds his own a little bit better against that production. And you know what, the big reason why that is, it comes in a lot of the rapping and the lyrical construction itself. And you know what, I will give Brazy Da Bo a lot of points here. His skills have markedly improved since 2015. He's on beat, he doesn't nearly force rhymes as often, he rarely, if ever, rhymes words with themselves, and he shows off more distinctive flows than I think Migos have ever used in their entire career. Now, do I wish he brought a little bit more intensity and firepower to his delivery? No, sure, absolutely. But if he's aiming for more of a laid-back technician approach, I can kind of get behind that. The problem comes in some of his choice of flows within songs can feel a little bit inconsistent, and that means otherwise really good verses can feel kind of clunky when he shifts things up, sometimes even within the verse itself. Now, the rhymes are all still there, he's going to connect that, but the syllable count can feel off from bar to bar, which means that he can be forced to simplify his cadence and drop the syllable count, and he doesn't quite have the same groove within the verse. Now, granted, there are ways to get around this. A more melodic delivery has let Drake sidestep this consistent issue he's had for years now, but Brazy Da Bo seems more technically focused in a Wu-Tang or Kendrick sort of mold, and as such, unless you're aiming for a big payoff with the flow switch or ramping up the intensity vocally, I would offer a tighter bar construction in terms of syllable count and cadence. And you know what, I'll be the first to admit, I am nitpicking here and getting pretty technical in the details, but I'm doing so with a real purpose. Most because there's a very real chance Brazy Da Bo will see this review, and I get the impression at this point of his career, he's more interested in the acclaim of older hip-hop heads who respect that level of lyrical construction and who will appreciate the detail. Hell, he says so himself on this album, so why not get a little bit more critical in that category? And here's the thing, he's so damn close to getting to that point, I'm excited to see him actively get there. His production is more on point and diverse than ever before, and while I think his more personal tracks have cut deeper, his bars and punchlines have never felt more consistent, and he's got the good taste and he's got some maturity behind him to avoid the obvious blunders in his writing. I'm not seeing any conceptual ideas besides the drugs as rapping song that would otherwise be bad on a concept level. And with a little bit more intensity and some tighter construction, I can see Brazy Da Bo having a real following. Not just in Baltimore, where I'd easily say he's competitive with other native rappers like King Los and Blackstar, but even beyond that. Again, I'm not crazy about this project, but it's on the right path, so I'm giving this a very light 7 out of 10 and a recommendation, especially if you're into artists who know great production and are delivering content that might not challenge you, but is solid all the same. Folks, I've been covering this guy since 2015, and he's a stand-up dude who's only getting better. I suggest you get on this bandwagon now. Definitely check this out. It's worth it. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I know not a lot of you are gonna watch this review, the underground hip-hop reviews, that tends to happen, but hey, I want you to check this out. It's got some good grooves to it, it's got some good vibes, and some really decent bars. So if you want to buy the record, links in the description below, and I got the pull up there for all you guys who actually managed to hear it, because again, this is some good stuff. Beyond that, if there's anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you guys want to get involved in supporting this channel, maybe get even a little bit more involved in my scheduling process, link to my Patreon right over there, where 3 times a week you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week the guys in the higher tiers get to add records or even movies to that schedule. A lot of you guys are really getting into it. I really appreciate it. With the whole demonetization crap with YouTube, I really appreciate all of your support, especially when the video gets demonetized in the first minute right out of the gate, despite what I put in my tags. Whatever, we'll continue through. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.
I eat peace like a ho-ho, moving hands up and down like a yo-yo. I can spit fast.